Hey creatives, I'm C. Jordan Blacara, and welcome to the Whispering Worth to the World podcast. I'm a master certified life and artist coach who specializes in working with creatives. This is where I share what I would tell my younger self if I could, what I've learned about the art of being human, about our inherent divine equality, and how it all relates to navigating our creative expression in the world. Hey everyone. 2 days ago, the recent cohort of the Create Anyway Collective, which is an artist mentorship program for visual artists to help them create a cohesive body of work, that cohort culminated with an online exhibit, and it was absolutely fabulous to hear them speaking so articulately about their work. It was so lovely to feature their work and share them and share their work and to think back on the transformation that they've made over the 14 to 16 weeks. They turn in their work after 14 weeks, but the program continues for another 2 weeks. And one artist wrote after the presentation that they felt lifted, which is exactly what we aim to do in the Create Anyway Collective. Lift their beliefs about themselves as artists and about their artistic ideas and about their work. So that was super fun to do 2 days ago. And you can check that out, both the exhibit as well as the reception, where you do hear from 9 different artists and you see a selection from each of their series. And that is at www.createanyway.today/CAC-exhibit-8. And one day when I have show notes, that link will be in the show notes. Now, in the latest episode 18, I deconstructed some of my views of the Rumi poem, Out Beyond Ideas of Wrongdoing and Right Doing, There is a Field. I'll meet you there. I painted a picture of what the field meant to me to hopefully inspire you to want to get yourself to the field. And in this episode, I'm going to share my opinions about categorizing wrongdoing and right doing and why it's problematic and why you might want to go out beyond your own ideas of wrongdoing and right doing. Because let's face it, all of our ideas about what's wrong and right are not the same from person to person. So let's go. Imagine a writing pad. First of all, your basic letter-sized writing pad that is lined. We use them in school. And imagine taking a pencil, and a pencil is important and will come into play later. So take a pencil and draw a vertical line down the center from the top of the sheet of this piece of paper or pad of paper to the bottom, from the top to the bottom, vertically down the center. So now you have 2 columns, the left and the right. And imagine that at the top of the left column, you were to write the word wrong, and at the top of the right column, write the word right. So this paper represents categorizing things on a spectrum of wrong and right, good and bad, better, worse, should do, shouldn't do, should be, shouldn't be, less than, better than, superior, inferior. All of these ways of measuring and dividing and separating people and characteristics and objects and things into categories of good or bad. And we have all kinds of different words that we can use for basically good, bad, right, wrong. And I'm going to talk about 3 different ways that we do this. One with ourselves, one with other people, and the third way are creativity, creative components. So let's start with other people. Imagine how we have ranked and measured people, placing people in right and wrong columns in America when African Americans were enslaved. That's an example of placing all members of a race based on race into the wrong column and a different race, white people, in the right column. So we use race, ethnicity, religions, genders to divide people into columns of right and wrong. When women weren't allowed to apply for credit in their own names or own property, or further back when women were considered property themselves, Those are examples of women as a gender being placed in the wrong category and men in the right category. So when it comes to people, we have no shortage of reasons that people have been placed into wrong and right columns. So where do you place people who are gay, trans, straight, conservative, liberal? Think of your columns: right column, wrong column, Republican, Democrat, those who vote, those who don't vote, people with a lot of financial resources, people with very few financial resources. Where do you put those who are rude, considerate, nice, mean, peaceful, violent, people who are gainfully employed, people who aren't, third world people, first world people, smokers and vapors, non-smokers and non-vapors, being alcoholic versus being sober, users of illicit drugs versus non-users, those experiencing addiction versus those who don't, young people, old people, entrepreneurs versus employees, people with tattoos and piercings, people without them, people who are or have been incarcerated, those who haven't been, on and on and on and on. We place people with certain characteristics or behaviors into right and wrong columns. So just imagine which side of the paper, which column you're putting various groups of people in. So if we move to creators, just take an inventory on a variety of categories in your field of creativity as to where you place certain characteristics. So for example, uniqueness and being different versus being derivative. For painters, you might put yourself in the wrong or right category based on how realistic your paintings are, or how loose and abstract they are, or how representational your work is versus how abstract it is. So there was speaking of the CAC, there was an artist who was in one of the CACs, and in their early pieces that they submitted during the course, their pieces were looser and they included abstracted elements because they were trying to be more abstract. But what we discovered together is that they thought loose and abstract was the better, more impressive style of painting. That was the way they should be painting, being abstract and loose, but it felt not right for them. It wasn't them. It wasn't the style that they particularly liked, even though they thought it was better. And so they were pushing themselves to go in that direction because the way they wanted to paint, which was more representational, was in the wrong category, but looser and more abstract was in the right category. So see the conflict where what you really want to do, you might not think it's the correct way to be or to do. So think of your creative shoulds and your creative shouldn'ts. Painters, going back to painters, because I work with them a lot, colorful and primary colors versus a subdued palette or a sophisticated palette, traditional versus modern, conservative versus provocative, safe versus bold, risky, and courageous, functional art versus abstract modern art, lamp maker, lamp designer versus, let's say, a more contemporary painter, right? There's sometimes in the arts, there can be this kind of fight between functional art versus modern art. Where are you putting it, in the right column or the wrong column? 2D versus 3D, smaller pieces versus larger pieces, paper pieces versus canvas pieces. Many people can think that canvas is better and it should be priced higher as opposed to pieces that are on paper, right? They're putting canvas in the better category, in the right category. So then there's also what you think other people will like versus what you actually like. There's popular and accepted versus risky and possibly disliked and dismissed. Or if we go into other forms of art, poetry versus novels, or short form versus long form in any particular media, or a movie that's 2 hours versus 3 hours, right? What do you put that in the right column or the wrong column? Reality TV shows versus scripted TV, digital art made with pixels versus analog art made with paint. Where do you put different styles of music? Hip hop, country, opera, jazz, classical, pop, metal, the blues. So many ways to classify and rank, so many. There's no shortage of ideas of how to rank and divide people into these two columns, wrong and right. So I once had an idea for a one-woman show with monologues and songs based on my strained relationship with my father And these songs were coming to me about my dad and the day that I was born. And they just kept coming. And I thought, because I was fighting these creative impulses, I thought no one wants to see a show about this. And I resisted writing those songs and writing that show for a while. I was putting things in the wrong column for sure. Songs about a relationship with a father, being too intimate about a relationship, too sad, not happy enough. People wouldn't be able to relate. It's going to seem whiny. Sure, I could write 1, 2, or 3 songs about my relationship with my dad, but a whole show plus monologues? No, that was not palatable. And I fought that idea for a good long while. And then finally, I said yes, and I created that show. So we creators can shut down a lot of our creative impulses by putting them in the wrong column. Also, humans socialized as women, we might put in the wrong column being selfish, spending time on our creativity, trusting ourselves, giving ourselves permission, not looking for it, investing time and resources without having someone outside of us validating our ideas and granting us permission to go forth with our ideas. We might put in the right column, putting our family first, putting our children first, putting their enrichment and activities before ours, supporting their creative impulses, but not our own. Or taking a class and following that teacher's creative steps and rules, but not our own creative impulses, getting a degree and being creative in a structured system like college, where you know the rules, but not going out and making your own rules. Finding someone else to tell you your work is valuable could be in the right column, but you believing your work is valuable without some kind of external validation might be in the wrong column. You might not think that that's okay or that you're allowed to do that. So sometimes what we put in the wrong column could serve our creativity, like giving ourselves permission to create what we want to create, but we won't allow it because we've deemed it as being in the wrong column, or we'll fight ourselves about it, like I did with that one woman show. So what can happen is that our lives can boil down to becoming fundamentally about being right, which can look like one of two things. One, getting out of the wrong column and getting into the right column, or conversely, staying in the right column or fighting like hell to stay in the right column and staying out of the wrong column. And I think this can be part of the bummer conflict of success, is that once we do have some success, we think we're in the right column and we want to stay there. And then it can become a rat race to stay in there and recreate the success and stay out of the wrong column. But fundamentally, having our life be about being right and being in the correct column, being in the right column and staying out of the wrong column is not really a life of freedom and allowing not only you, but other people to be who they are, for all of us to be allowed to be who we are. So here's an example about a very close friend of mine who was definitely not doing friendship right. Hello, I love you if you're listening. And what happened was we met in high school, we became friends, and she moved eventually 7 years after high school, to another time zone. And she had a second child, and they had some economic challenges, plus more. And basically, of course, the format of the relationship was necessarily going to change because of the change in proximity and logistics. But in my opinion, she was not doing that new format correctly. She was not speaking to me enough. She was not calling me enough. She was not making enough time for me. She was making time for everyone else, but not me. So she was totally in the wrong column on that point. And she was not seeing it the right way. We had completely different points of view about how to do this new form of friendship. And here's the problem: when I, for me, speaking for myself, have those columns, I am bothered. I am upset. I have disturbed my own peace when I'm looking at someone I dearly love and saying she's totally doing friendship wrong. I'm frustrated. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I'm sad. I am suffering, and I will define suffering as optional emotional pain caused by my interpretation. So this went on for years and years and years. And this relationship has withstood the test of time. So it was not for lack of love on both parts, but we just saw it differently. And it took me a long ass time to get out into the field and get beyond my ideas of wrongdoing and right doing with her. And it was such a source of friction for me, because I was making it mean things like, I don't matter to her. She's disrespecting me. This is not what love is. This is not what a true friend does. I'm being dismissed. Yeah, she's definitely not doing it right. And I was thinking I was right about all of my ideas about how friendship should be. So I was incredibly righteous about that. So that's an area, an example of how, when I am immersed, swimming around in my ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, I am suffering. I am disturbed. My peace is not intact. So what if there is no such thing as right or wrong? And I do think that is what Rumi was suggesting, is that there are no absolute categories or characteristics or ideas or people who are categorically right or wrong. There are no absolute rights or wrongs. We just have our ideas of wrongdoing and right doing. I love how Rumi puts it, our ideas of wrongdoing and right doing. Each of our ideas, very personal to us. And when we take our ideas of wrongdoing and right doing to extremes, we get things like feeling justified in being rude, inconsiderate, unkind, mean to others, if only in our own heads, ranting about other people, being awful in our opinions of other people inside our own heads. We can discount and dismiss others, either internally or actually say it to them. We can discount their opinions, their ideas, their creations. When we think we're absolutely justifiably right and someone else is absolutely justifiably wrong, we can justify violence. We can justify controlling a group that we think is less than us, or that we think is in the wrong category because of their color of their skin, for example. We can make laws that discriminate against groups of people. We can take rights away from groups of people. We can feel righteous when we drop bombs on people. Now, if I go inside an individual person, inside ourselves, we might also divide parts of ourselves into these wrong, right columns. We can put traits or characteristics like modesty, loyalty, generosity, exhibitionism, introversion, extroversion, being quiet, being gregarious, high productivity, low productivity. We can put all of these things into wrong and right categories on the left side of that paper that you imagined, or the right side of that paper. Being serious, funny, smart, ignorant, having a high IQ or an average or a low IQ. We can put those into categories. We might also put our feelings into good, bad categories, like, and this is a pet peeve of mine. Have you seen it? Good vibes only. The t-shirt, the bumper sticker, the coffee mug, good vibes only. That is totally putting good vibes in the right category. Whatever y'all think good vibes are, happy, comfortable, certain, secure, safe, putting that in the good column. But what about other feelings? Sad, uncomfortable, uncertain, anxious, depressed, envious, jealous, grief. You might put those in the bad column, especially if you have a coffee mug that says good vibes only. You might put those other vibes in the wrong column. And if you're socialized as a woman, for example, you might put anger in the wrong category. You're supposed to be placid, selfless. Anger is a bad look on a woman. And If you're socialized as a man or have come to view anger as a strong, productive emotion, that might be in your right column, right? So we have all of our different cultures and histories and reasons for why things are in the right or wrong column, but we put things on both sides of that paper. So creators, we might even get into conflicts within ourselves. So for example, here's one scenario. Being in a gallery, having your work represented by a gallery might be in your right column, but being rejected, being told that someone doesn't like your work could be in your wrong column. Rejection's in the wrong column and being in a gallery is in the right column. So you might never pursue a gallery because you don't want to hear no. You don't want to be rejected. You don't want your work to be rejected, quite possibly because you're going to think it is you being rejected and not your work. And you're going to take it very personally. So we have a conflict, right, between the thing that we have in the right column and the wrong column. And that can affect our artistic choices. Another scenario is you might want your work to have an audience and sell and earn an income. You might want to earn an income from your art, whether you're a painter, musician, director, or any other kind of artistic modality. So earning an income from your art might be in the right column, but you might not think that what you really want to create would be accepted by an audience and earn you an income. So you might be conflicted and never commit fully to creating your true, real work. You might even never give your work a chance because you believe it's in the wrong column because it's not commercial or widely acceptable or it's too inflammatory and it will never find its audience. So you might choose to do more commercial work and more readily put that work out of the world into the world and leave your authentic work to languish. And here's another example that happens a lot with artists. I'll be working with an artist who will say, everyone doesn't have to like my work. I know everyone has their own opinion, especially if they come do the CAC and then we help them get to that point of view. And that it doesn't have to mean that they're being rejected or criticized. And they'll say, okay, yes, maybe everyone's not going to get my work, but then they'll add this on. And if they don't like it, screw them, which is the more PC version of that. But I just want to soften that because if you're going to accept that we are all entitled to our opinions and no one is wrong for their opinion, for their preferences, for their aesthetic lens, which comes from the life that they've lived on this planet so far, if no one's wrong for their opinions, then just note the bit of discord and friction that's in that screw 'em point of view. It's really putting that person's opinion in the wrong column. You haven't gone out beyond that. And the only reason I pause here is because I think it disturbs your own peace. I don't think you're really doing anything to that other person with their opinion, but I do think you might be disturbing your own peace and producing a little bit of suffering by saying, screw them, ultimately, if they don't like my work. I hope you feel that. I hope that makes sense. So what if, let's go back to that piece of paper and that pencil line that was drawn vertically from top to bottom. What if you imagined erasing that line that went down the center of the paper and you erased the words wrong and right on the paper, and then all of those characteristics or features or behaviors or creative choices that are on that piece of paper, all of the people, all of the groups of people and categories of people are all there without any separation, and they all are just things that exist in the world or are options and possibilities that exist in the world. So can you let go of the idea that there's an absolute right or wrong, and then just to let everything be an option or a possibility or an opportunity? And it's my personal contention that so many disputes, arguments, hatred, divisions, conflicts, and even wars could be avoided if we went beyond our ideas of wrongdoing and right doing and discovered the field that Rumi was referring to. If we could meet each other there, we would have more peaceful people and a more peaceful world. When we don't make ourselves wrong or right, we have less internal suffering and more inner peace. When we don't make any number of the components of our creativity wrong or right, we have less internal suffering and more inner peace. We are more apt to create our work, and then the world can benefit from the art and the creations that we make. We artists. When we don't make other people wrong or right, we have less internal suffering and more internal peace. It's less about them. When we don't make them or any other person wrong or right, we inside of us have less internal suffering and more internal peace. And when we as a collective, let's say a country or a region or a political party or any group of people joined by some unifying interest or idea, when we as a collective don't make other collectives wrong or right, we have less collective suffering and more collective peace. And where I think it starts is with each person. And I don't think this is a very convenient teaching. I think we are very addicted to our ideas of what is wrong and what is right. And we are very righteous about it. And it is very inconvenient to let go of our ideas of wrongdoing and right doing. Remember my very close friend of over 30 years? It was super inconvenient to let go of thinking she was wrong about how to have a long-term friendship. Also, I was coaching a client recently who was going to a milestone event for a family. A family member was having a milestone, and everyone was gathering for this event, and many people hadn't seen each other in years, and she was going to see them. And what she was recalling was the great divides among various people within the family and how uncomfortable it might be. So how can we let go of our ideas of wrongdoing and right doing when there has been a great divide or a seeming great divide for a great many years? So here's my suggestion. Can we start with tiny moments? First of all, can we just start with considering that there is no real wrong or right? There are no absolutes. We only, each and every one of us, have our ideas of what is wrong and right. So can we start with tiny moments? For example, can you not make the person who cut you off in traffic wrong? Can you not make the audience members who walked out on your performance at intermission wrong for doing so? Can you not make the crit group participant, artist, wrong for suggesting that you totally rework your painting? Can you not make the juror who did not select your work for the exhibit that you submitted to wrong for not jurying in your work? Can you go to the exhibit and see all the work and not be bitter? Can you not make the juror wrong in your own heart and mind? Can you not disturb your own peace within your own heart and mind? If your spouse or life partner doesn't like your latest sculptures, can you not make them wrong and decide that they don't support you as an artist? Can you let your friend have their point of view of how she, he, they want to be in relationship with you and not make them wrong because their point of view is way different than your point of view and how you want the relationship to go? The relationship, the marriage, the friendship, the band relationship, the theater group relationship. Can you not make anyone wrong for having a different point of view than yours? Can you not make the neighbor wrong who has the campaign sign, the political campaign sign in their yard for the person you would never in a million years vote for? So in situations like these, can you go out beyond ideas, your ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, and go to the field, even if they won't meet you there? I think we can go one by one, moment by moment, and we can go alone. And if we are so fortunate, someone may meet us there one day, or someone may already be there to greet us and surprise us. So Rumi's poem lifts me up every time, and it shows me the way. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. Hey creatives, I will have future classes and trainings on the self-worth of the soul, as well as stepping outside of the entire paradigm most of us don't even know we're trapped in, so that we can live and create with more innovation, invention, and infinite choice. Want to know more? Go to www.createanyway.today/soul. SOUL. That's createanyway.today/soul.